Morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. Morning, Mike. Especially since you came on and gave us a good morning right away.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
And welcome to the show this morning.
I'm going to go and get a cup of coffee. You do the intros and razzmatazz. My percolator is just finished, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Percolate away, Dave. Yep. So welcome to Talking Niagara. It is Monday, June 9th, and with Dave and myself, and we are welcoming you to another week of kind of our talk show. And this is about Niagara Falls in the area, covering the news that impacts us locally. So we will do that. So how was your day, Dave? Your weekend, I mean? I was relaxing on the deck. Decided to have a nice weekend relaxing. There we go. But I know that you went.
Here I am.
Dave. Dave. Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Okay. So how was your weekend, sir?
Pretty good. Well, of course, there was a lot going on. Like of course, there was the Rick Rose thing. I'll get into that in a minute. And there was also an unveiling, a bench unveiling, very close to Jepson and Victoria and Jepson, right there, right where that sort of laundromat is, right there, and it was called just let me get my morning brain going here. Yeah, it was no justice, no peace, bench event. And there was the music that came with the little promotion, and it was on Friday the 6th. It was at 5125 Victoria Avenue, right there on the west side of the street. There's an ebony black bench. It's a really nice one. Like, it's really, really, I mean, it's the framework of it, that which the wood is attached to, is kind of fancy. It's all dressed. It's all painted really dark black, and it's a day of celebration. And it talks about when thousands marched for peace, when Black Lives Matter on June 6th, commemorating when that happened here. That's from the Niagara Falls Anti-Racist Committee. My friend Vivian Lane. She goes by Vivian Lane, professional name, but she's also known as Vivian Little or Vivian Little. Anyway, so, and lots of people in town know her. In any case, she spoke. Other people spoke, and there was this dedication on. Now, it is ebony black, and of course, it's symbolic of, black racism and so on, the abolition. But I couldn't help thinking that day it was starting to get a little bit warm, and that bench is really, really black. So in the summertime, it's going to be a hard place to sit down on. It's going to be nice on a sunny day in the cool weather. It's going to be warm, but it's going to be super hot any other day.
Take your white towel though and sit down on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Like that. Yeah, you'd have to sit down on
So did you go to the Rick Rose event on Saturday?
Yeah, the next one was the Rick Rose event. I went there. I think I got there a little after 5. It started at 4. And they had acts, many different acts on stage. And briefly, there weren't a long sets of any kind. So that was kind of nice. You had all kinds of different acts going on there.
I hear Gary won a guitar.
Yes, he did. And true to form, I'd been drinking or having a couple of beers with him and lunch a few days prior to that. And he said, if he won the guitar, we're just musing about that event. And he says, if he won one of the guitars, he's just going to turn it back in and have it auctioned off for more money for the Rick Rose Foundation. And that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. He turned it back to Paul, and Paul will raffle it off again for some more money.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. So anyway, everybody was there. The mayor was there. Lori Lococo was there. Mona Patel was there. Mike Strange was there, and so there was, and there may have been other counselors there that I just didn't notice, but there was a pretty good crowd, and they all stood. In the newspaper, you see everybody standing there pointing up at the sign, Rick Rose Way, because they dedicated part of the Queen Street to Rick Rose, who have tragically died too young last year at the age of 64. Long before his work had been done, or his dream at least had been fulfilled. Yeah. Anyway, so there, everyone was there, but you can't see me because I'm behind them all doing the same thing. But
just angle. I know. It's the angle in which the picture was taken. So was the mayor there?
Mayor was there, gave a speech. Rose came. Rose, who is Rick Rose's wife, was there to help with the unveiling. But what they did was they put the sign up, and then they put a kind of a veil over it. But it was too high for anybody to reach to pull off, so they had to find the tallest guy to sort of get a hold of it first, and then give a piece of it to Rose, and she was able to pull it down and expose, the Rick Rose Way kind of thing. So it was a very nice ceremony. It was a whole lovely event. I tipped my hat to Paul K. Lemire. He was all part of it. It was just a terrific event, a terrific thing. Pat Porter was there, who took over 4680Q. And it was actually it was very, very touching, the whole thing. It was just nice to see the whole thing happening. Yeah. And it was for free. If you wanted to, you could buy a ticket, which I did, and which would give you a chance at the guitars and other prizes. There was like $50 worth of Pete's Pizza, that kind of thing. $50 worth of taps.
That was what I was wondering, because you couldn't stop anybody walking by up there, and they were selling tickets. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So it was really quite a nice thing all in all.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot all about it until it was gone. It was too late. Yeah. I was thinking about that, and I was just kind of had a relaxing weekend, and then thought about that about 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
that was way too late then. Anyway,
it was quite nice, the whole thing. I think I was there at 8 o'clock, or far maybe later even than 8 o'clock. The entertainment carried on, and everybody got the thanks. I think I left there at 8:30 or quarter to 9 or something.
I should have come over.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been much left if you left. It came over 7, but you would have still been there for some of the. Well, they were drawing for the prizes little by little there, and near the end. But anyway, it was nice. The whole thing was nice. It was a tribute to Rick Rose. It's kind of nice to kind of take your hat off. Now everybody was like, the local politicians were there. I saw Lori for the 3rd time in 1 week, Lori Lococo, because like that's pretty rare. You might see her twice a year maybe, but the fact is that she was on the walk with Mike Cushman and Gary Wilkins, the Cyanamid Walk, where they reviewed the contaminated land with the region. So she was one of them there. She was at the anti-racist bench unveiling. on Friday, and there she was again. So I was at all three events. So was Lori's. So I said to her, "Oh, there we're three times in 1 week." She was busy as usual. Being one of the foremost counselors and one of those people that are.
Well, she actually only lives around the corner from there, which is a great thing.
Yeah. I remember I drove her home from a Toastmaster meeting or some kind of meeting one time, and dropped her off there. And I said, "Oh, wow, I used to live in an old house downtown too. Some of those old houses are really nice."
Yeah.
And, so I lived I was on Ontario Avenue farther down the way, but the house was built in 1913.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice part of town. All right. Okay. Anything else about that?
That's all. It was really nice. There was a beautiful rosewood guitar, Rose, of course, given out and custom made. So
was this the one that Gary won?
No, he won the other one. The first prize, that was I forget who. One of the main contributors to the whole thing won. I guess he bought a bunch of tickets. That's why I guess he won. He bought a bunch of tickets, so his chance of him winning. But he was actually, ironically, that particular person who won the guitar was the one that donated the other guitar.
Yeah, that's always kind of everybody goes, yeah, fake, don't they? Or fix.
Well, I don't know. Gary had about 4 cards in there himself. He had bought 4 tickets himself. I don't think there was a whole. There was I had to. I brought a friend of mine along, and Gary had held a ticket for me. He bought a bunch of them, and then one of them was mine, and I didn't realize that, and I'd already bought another ticket from Paul. So I asked him to switch the names on one of Gary's cards to my buddy there, and he gave Gary the $20 so that I could square it. Gary didn't care, but it kind of bothered me that he held the ticket for me, and I didn't. I bought a different ticket, so I had a buddy of mine buy that particular ticket.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So a fun time was had by all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Canada's bank rate is paused at 2.75%, and the what's his name, Tiff Macklem, who's the governor of the Bank of Canada, has basically just laid out the reasons that and really is saying that where we are is we paused it as a result of the shock-prone world. He's being cautious, I think, because what he doesn't want to do is put it down and then have world events change their economic status. He's kind of looking at the world and being very cautious.
Yeah, this is he is being very, very cautious, but you have the catch-22 situation going on here. If you raise it or if you hold it there, you stifle investment. But if you reduce it, you might find yourself in a situation, a real bear trap.
Yeah.
Obviously he's playing the probably the only cards he has right here, and it's the same as the Fed chief in the U.S. They're not budging on their interest rates. They're not bringing them down. And why aren't they bringing them down? That's supposed to stimulate the economy. But the reason why they're not bringing them down is because we don't have any sure idea of how that economy is going to work out. Right now we have the Trump tariffs, and they increase or decrease at whatever seems his whim. And there is confusion and uncertainty in the market. Unless you're going to get some sort of a certainty, you're not going to get the banks to reduce any kind of interest rates. If anything, they might put them back up a little bit to fight off potential inflation that may come from.
But the thing is, I think that given where we were with putting them up last time they were put up, and how angry Canada got, I think he's cautious not to do that, right?
Well, right now, inflation has not got down to that 2%. 2% is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And that's the same as the United States, and that's exactly what the Fed chief in the States has said. You haven't got to that 2% inflation, where all the politicians are raging. Oh, well, we'd be much better off if you reduce the interest rates, stimulate the economy, blah 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 blah. When they did that in Turkey, their currency almost devalued. They had 40% inflation.
Yeah.
40% inflation. So we had bad inflation, and we don't want that again. On the other hand, we do want to stimulate the economy, don't we? But we have the X factor, or should I say the Trump factor. As long as tariffs are unsure, and it's been a couple months now, basically, where they've been up, where they've been down, where they're 25%, where they're 50%. Now, those fans of Trump say, well, that's the way he makes deals. He terrifies everybody. He scares everybody. And then he comes around and he makes a good deal, blah, 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 blah. Well, we see that didn't really work, has it? No. The tariffs, all it's doing is making things very unsure for everyone out there. It's increasing the cost of buying things for the U.S. public, that regardless of our own, but the U.S. public will now have to pay much more because of tariffs being put on their goods. Now, their taxes may maintain or even go down, their income taxes, but their cost of living will go up because of tariffs. Because there's tariffs on cars, there's tariffs on steel, there's tariffs on aluminum, there's tariffs on everything you make. There's tariffs on Chinese goods, there's the Indian goods. So basically, I think what they're trying to do is come to that point where they have across the board 10% tariffs on all imported goods into the United States. That will bring them a lot of revenue, but that would also cause a reduction of the average person's ability, standard of living, except for the rich. So this kind of uncertainty is the thing that's causing, like Tiff Macklem, not to reduce the numbers at all. Why would he in a situation like that? It'd just be dumb.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting thing is that when he ended his speech, he was also cheering on the Oilers.
Well, good for you. Yeah, but that's still funny. I mean, I remember when the LA Kings won the cup, and somebody pointed out there are more Canadians on the Los Angeles Kings than there are on any other of the contenders. So when people were saying, "Oh, we need a Canadian team," when one or two is still in there, somebody pointed out there are more Canadians on the LA Kings than there are on any Canadian team.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And at the moment, there seemed to be this bitter rivalry between the Oilers and the Florida Panthers right now.
Well, that's because they were very close last year. There's a 7-game series, and Edmonton was edged out, and so they want revenge, of course.
Of course, yeah. Why not? Yeah. And the irony here, which probably meets many in Toronto, is that, hey, had it not been for that Game 7 win for Florida in the Toronto Panthers series, then it would have been Toronto in the finals.
Yeah. Well, geez, that ain't gonna happen very very soon. 1967. I've been waiting since 1967.
Yeah.
And I thought the New York Rangers had a long blight. They had to go. They won in 1940 and didn't win again until 1994. Well, at least won in 67. That was what? That was 54 years, right? Yeah. How long have we been waiting? We've been waiting 33 plus 25, more than 54 years now. It'll be 60 years.
But again, here's the question.
It'll be 60 years in 2 years from now. So it's 58 years we've had a blight.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dave. You know, in order to get into the Stanley Cup, in order to win the Stanley Cup, you've got to be regular in the playoffs. You've got to be getting through round 1 to round 2. You've got to be getting to the championships on a regular basis, championship game on a regular basis. Then, then you've got to, you've got to be regular in the playoffs. You've got to be consistent and going at it, and trouble is Toronto has this habit of dive bombing when they get to the, next round.
I don't know. I think it's just that whoever owns Toronto knows they don't have to do much. All they have to do is sit there, and they're going to fill up that arena.
I know. Anyway, moving on. So Regional Council is taking the first steps in creating, limiting its 2026 budget to 3.5%.
This is going to be a tough one. Very, very tough. Already the regional councils are twisting and turning, and there already seems to be under a big stone, basically, squirming under the pressure of that 3.5 limit.
Yeah.
They look as if they wouldn't be able to do it. And right now, of course, they're turning their ire against the province. They're saying the province isn't coming up with enough money. Okay, so here we have the cities in Niagara Falls are broke. They have incurring too much debt. The region has incurred too much debt. The province has incurred too much debt. The feds have incurred an incredible amount of debt. So you have the region who is in debt, or you have the cities who are in debt looking towards the region to do their part of the region stuff that is in debt. So the city's in debt. Now the region is asking, the indebted region is asking the indebted province for money. And the indebted province is asking for money from the indebted federal government. The answer here is just like, can you not stay within your means?
Yeah.
And this whole business here is, no, we can't. They say we can't do this because the province hasn't got enough money. And the province says we don't have enough money and we're looking for the feds. And the feds don't have enough money and they're going to be becoming more and more in debt. So everybody's in debt. So where is the money going to come from?
Oh, yeah. Well, the irony here, of course, is that I think that municipalities across the whole of Ontario feel the squeeze because there's not enough money being provided to the municipalities, but the municipal money needs to come. There needs to be more municipal money coming from the feds in order to make those budget increases. But
where the feds going to get it? Where the feds going to get it?
But exactly.
Where the province going to get it? They're in debt.
You see, it needs to be about, we need to change how we deal with equalization payments.
And how do we do that?
Yeah.
When everybody's in debt.
Yeah.
Okay. I come to you and I say, I say, Peter, I need more money for my part of this show. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm in debt. I need it. And so then you go to the region and say, look, I got this show. I need some more money. Well, we're in debt. So what we'll do is we'll go to the province, and the province says, and the region says, give me some money. We want money. And the province says, why? Well, we're in debt. Where are you going to get it? How are you going to get blood from a stone?
Yeah.
The whole idea here is that we have been spendthrifts all the way along. The politicians will get away with spending as much money as they possibly can. But when the piper comes to call, they don't have any.
Yep.
All they do is start sticking their hand out. So we have been, basically what they have been saying is we have been irresponsible in the way we've been spending. And so we want the province to bail us out, when the province says, well, we have been irresponsible in the way we have been spending, and we're in debt just like you. So we're going to go to the federal government. The federal government says we have been terribly irresponsible in the way we have been spending money, and we're in debt. What are you going to do? Go to the IMF?
Yeah. No, they go to the Canadian people, of course. They take it straight out your pocket.
So look what happened last time. We had 9.6 or 9% tax increases at the region, a 7% tax increase to the tax burden on us is getting outrageous. Unfortunately, we're going to have to look at things like the police are going to want 13%. Do you think they're going to get it this time? You think they're going to get it this time?
Again, that's where the whole thing comes in. 12.55% total increase, including Niagara Regional Police, transit, waste management, water services. All of these, councillors are worried that aiming for lower increases could lead to service cuts.
Well, it's going to have. We are going to have service.
Ultimately, I don't see that we've got any choice but to cut services at a certain point.
Now, the real problem here is the mandatory programs. The province is ripping us off for money for the mandatory programs. Well, if they don't have money, how do we expect to get it? Government after government in Ontario has plunged us in debt, as the federal government. The region hasn't done all that great either. So what you have is housing. Now, housing and subsidies for children needing food. Those are the mandatory programs they think that the province is really piking out on. And how are we going to be able to take care of those? So are they going to become a priority then? Are they going to take money away from the police to make up for the burden on local taxpayers for these mandatory operations? Now it says over the past budgets, councillors have increased regional taxes by 9.6%, 7.02%, and 7.5%. They would be on the way for another 9% increase if somebody hadn't said keep it down to 3.5%. We will most definitely get another 7% to 9% increase. Where else are they going to get the money?
Well, the whole things that they're talking about here is we've got children's services, homelessness services, housing services, senior services, social assistance and employment services that administers the Ontario Works offerings, public health services, waste management, and transit services.
Well, the community, I'll read off the article paragraph here. The Community and Social Services 2025 budget was $587 million to support more than 50,000 residents who need it most: children, vulnerable individuals, and older adults. Okay, so we're going to need more money for those areas.
Yeah.
Where is that money going to come from? They want it to come from the province, but the province is broke. So we're going to have to trim our own budget. Is it going to come out of the police budget? Is that where it's going to come out of?
This is the worst of it.
Police want 13%.
Yeah, we want those services, but we also don't want to pay for them.
Yeah, Henry Conning, Commissioner of Community and Social Service, told councillors budget pressure is growing due to population growth, inflationary pressures, cost of living increases, and climbing poverty rates. Unfortunately, we have climbing poverty rates, and I think a lot of that's being pushed up because of housing, and housing is being pushed up because people are moving here and pushing up the value of homes, and then we can't build them fast enough to keep the price down.
And what Mike is saying here, a normal person in Niagara Falls, the wages will never be able to own a home.
Yes, that's quite true. You don't already have one, you're not going to get one.
Yeah.
Unless you have two good incomes, which means you'll delay your family. You may not have a kid, all that stuff. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
And then we need top up for nutrition for seniors, adding 30% cents per day. So and then you have things that are driven, that are provided by the community. I was able to talk to somebody from Project Share on Saturday, and as our club gives them lots of money for them, and they use a lot of our money to fuel their van, and so there you have an outfit that's feeding a lot of people that the region doesn't have to, or at least relieves the region from some of the pressure of providing some food, but Project Share as well. So you have NGOs out there doing what they can, plus the region, and still it's not enough.
Yeah.
Is this going to be borne by the local taxpayer?
Yeah.
I don't think the regional councilors can see a day where they don't have at least a 7% increase this year. Though they're going to be forced to reduce it to 3.5%. We'll see how easy that happens.
Well,
I don't think in their very best dreams that they can get anything. They can maintain the services they have with a budget of only 3.5%.
Well, it's easy in April and May to stick your hands up on a theoretical 3.5% budget for next year, but it's a whole heap harder maintaining and getting to that point next year. Well, by the time we come to be voting on the budget in November, December time.
Yeah.
Or they become voting on it, not us.
Yeah.
Right. But by putting the 3.5% out there, they have tried to make people conscious that you've got to live within certain limits.
Yeah.
And that's as applicable to the police as it is to fire departments and children's services and housing services, etc. Right?
Well, it is said that the fire department in this town, it takes 25% of all our resources.
Yeah.
Is untouchable. And the Niagara Regional Police will appear to be untouchable. They are asking for 13%. How are you going to pare that down to 3.5%?
Yeah.
How are you going to ask them to ask? They say they need 13%. How are you going to tell them? Oh, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a quarter of that.
Yeah, to some extent, what you need to be saying is prove it.
Well, they will. Of course, they'll prove it, and they'll make it look good, because if you're going to introduce your budget, they say here, and every department knows as soon as you reduce your budget, you're expected to reduce it every year thereafter. So never reduce your budget.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it's a tough time. There's tough times coming ahead in Niagara region.
It's going to be tough times for the councilors. The councilors it's going to be on the councilors, because the staff, they're going to come up with the recommendations, because they're going to be asked, where can we cut? And when somebody says to the police department, guess what? You want a 13%, and you're going to get 4%. That's 0.5% more than anyone else is going to get. And they're going to go enraged. They're going to flip out, right? And they're going to say, I need more guns. I need more cars, like super deluxe cruisers with periscope.
Earlier on, a car can last 6 months longer. A gun, guns, you don't need to be replacing it every 2 or 3 years.
Well, what will happen is somebody come along and say, well, this super deluxe, super duper Glock with night vision glasses and on and on and on, and of course, everybody's going to want it.
Yeah.
I don't think the cops should have to. The kind of cars they're driving are super expensive. I don't think they need that.
Yeah, they don't need.
You know, that's my guess, that they could go with more inexpensive cars.
Well, they all soup them up anyway, right? They first thing they do with a car is they take them to their own internal garage, soup them up.
No, they don't. They don't do any souping up in the garage. They only maintain them in the garage. They don't soup them up. They buy them souped. You can buy them souped up.
Yeah.
I know. A cop friend of mine came into town with a souped up Interceptor that he bought. A cop car that was an Interceptor. Man, can this thing fly? Holy smokes.
I've driven one of those former Interceptors. They can fly.
Wow. It was all power.
Yeah.
In any case, so that it's going to be hard to restrain ourselves.
Yeah.
Because the cost of living is going up for everyone. The average, as Mike pointed out, the average wage earner here can't afford a home, can't anything. It's just very difficult. We have a lot of, and if you have a home already, you're lucky, because you're not going to be able to get one too easily if you haven't already had one. You're, I don't know. It's not what it used to be like, and the city and the region and everybody. And we have to remember too, our dollar has been devalued. It's been devalued by the feds when they printed money.
Yeah.
When we started getting into inflation and our budgets weren't hitting correctly during the Trudeau years, they printed more money, devalued the currency. That's all a factor in this. The tariffs are a factor in it. The uncertainty of the market's a factor in all this. But basically what it is we cannot spend what we make. The old macabre principle of you make 100 pounds, you spend 99 pounds, you're going to be a happy person. If you make 100 pounds and you spend 101 pounds, you're going to be an unhappy person eventually. Yeah. And that's what the region, the city, everybody else in this world is right now, is in debt. Because everybody says you can be in debt. It's good to be in debt. It's okay to be in debt. Well, it's not.
And that's more applicable to, to public authorities than it is to, it's I say more applicable to public authorities. It's equally applicable to all of us. But you're right.
Well, that the broader view is that we, as a society, are in debt. More and more people in the United States right now are defaulting on their car payments and their credit card payments.
Yeah.
And why are they defaulting? Is because they have incurred debt because they have been coaxed into spending more than they can afford.
Yeah.
And they have accumulated debt. It goes right down to the individual. So we are a debt-ridden society. The individuals are full of debt, but they are struggling to maintain. The cities have debt that they struggle to maintain. The region has debts that it has struggles to maintain. The province is overburdened with debt it can't handle, so it has less to give out. The federal government, our own federal government, is paying more than our entire defense. Our federal government is paying the debt that we are paying is equal to the GST. The debt payments is equal to the GST that's taken in by the government.
Yeah.
How do you get ahead? You don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole idea is that we've accumulated so much debt now, and it's an uncomfortable thing. Oh, we've been told that we'd have to pay for the debt eventually. Well, that eventuality has come. We are a debt-ridden society. If anything's going to crush our society, is the weight of that debt, because no one seems to be willing to not do it. And what's going to happen is going to happen what happened in the States and what happened in New York City in the 80s, what happened to Ontario in the 90s. The banks are going to come along and they're going to say your credit rating is reduced. And once that happens, you have to pay even more interest. And then that's when the services really start getting cut.
All right. Yeah. So tough times ahead for our councillors at the regional level.
Yeah. There are some tough choices to make there. But the mandatory services, how are you going to cut them? How are you going to cut food and assistance to children?
Yeah.
Are you going to do that? No, that stays up there. You're going to have to cut it from the police or somewhere else.
All right, so Lococo's lamb, $22 family size. Okay, bring it home, make a meatloaf. The meatloaf, it felt yuck, not like burger meat. That's what we get.
Oh, what she's saying that, okay, now you use different, well, beef is very, very expensive right now. So you have to use alternatives. I suppose that's what she's saying. You use lambs instead, lamb meat. I've bought that also at Lococo's as well. But basically it just reduced the amount of meat that I eat.
Yeah.
We don't need as much meat as we eat. So you can reduce that and increase, but even good vegetables, like Ontario asparagus is out there right now, and I'm eating it like a horse to a trough. I buy bundles of it and eat it just because Ontario asparagus is so nice this time of year. But all the fruits and vegetables are expensive.
Yeah,
and so you really you can only fill up on pasta so much. Or fillers like that. You really do have to put out for the good fruits and vegetables that you need to sustain your family. And to have a vegetable-rich diet like I do, I'm lucky because I'm a single guy, so I can do that. But I don't know. You just gotta have to make your choices for the healthiest way you can go. Stay away from sugars. Stay away from Fruit Loops.
Won't get any argument from me on that one.
And if you do have like craft dinner is a popular food. A quick, well, even just macaroni and cheese, but craft dinner is a quick meal. But if you add stuff to it, you can make a better meal out of it. If you cut up little vegetables, put them inside it.
You see, what I don't like about the craft dinner and why my thumbs down was powdered cheese. Really? Oh my God.
How did what?
Powdered cheese.
Well, you just like powdered milk. It is out there. All you do is take the moisture away from it and it powderizes it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's just don't like it. Don't like the concept. All right. That's why I give craft dinners a big thumbs down. The whole
macaroni and cheese is a nice dish.
I like macaroni and cheese, but make it fresh. Yeah. All right, moving on. Steve Gallagher remembered at the Niagara annual walk to end ALS. Of course, Steve Gallagher is a Niagara journalist and advocate who lost his battle with ALS earlier on this year. And his fight for awareness continues through his daughter, Olivia Mayer. And she's only 11. So she's 11-year-old. She's carrying forward her father's legacy by participating in the walk to end ALS that occurred on June the 7th.
Well, I put this here. This is the second time when Steve died a little while ago. Steve died a little while ago. We mentioned it here on the show. And I noticed that there was an ALS walk. So it may have got overlooked with all the other stuff that was going on at the time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put that out there, and I wanted to remember Steve because I knew him, and he tried to reinvigorate the local press, newspapers. And he told us a lot of stuff like how the local press was under a strain, of course, to keep itself relevant. Yeah. If you ever seen the Niagara Falls Review, it's like It's like 1 or 2 little pages and stuff like that. Meanwhile, it has been able to support a staff that it still maintains a staff, but you've seen that the local news coverage is pretty bad these days. Like you get very limited amounts of local coverage. Like I said, we had a convention here, right here in town, and it is probably the most diverse. It is the most diverse division of any service club in the world. And there wasn't anybody there, but they went to Comic-Con, So they, but Steve, he tried to change that. He brought in the Citizens Editorial Board, and I wrote, I think, 8 articles for it. And our term was 1 year, and we'd have meetings, and they were nice, very nice meetings.
Yeah.
And he'd tell us all kinds of stuff about the strains of the public, So anyway.
Yeah. So a huge loss to the community, but good to see that his family's pushing this through the Walk to End ALS.
Well, he was an energetic guy and pretty passionate, So when I remember I wrote an article that was pretty much based on a friend of mine who had an accident and how things had changed, particularly with helmet and safety use. And he questioned me pretty stringently. So he was a serious journalist. He made sure that he knew that the person I was talking about actually really existed, and the story that I was telling was truthful, not just sort of made up or exaggerated or anything like that, which was a surprise to me. Like, why would I do something like that? But I guess that's his job to do that. He really got into it. I had to change a few things, because I'm not a journalist of any kind or a professional writer of any kind. I pretty much just had to change the phrasing of a thing or two here or there. But I remember he was all over me. He wanted to make sure that I was telling that what I was portraying was accurate. And,
okay, so what I'm going to add in here is for everybody who's out there, I'm going to add in the link, so you can actually make a donation.
All right. That would please Steve. Yeah.
Yep, to Olivia's page. So Olivia is basically stepping up. So she campaigned to get $4,000. She's raised $12,360 to date. So good.
Well done, Olivia.
Right. And this is basically the whole Walk to End ALS is looking to raise $2 million, and they're at $1.6 million to date. So if you want to do your part, you can do so. You can do so using the link beneath. Okay.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one to beat. Very, very tough. Very, very tough. I think a lot of the money will have to be. And there's different kinds of ALS. Look at the one that Stephen Hawking had. He lived to be 74 years old, which is amazing. He has suffered ALS most of his adult life, from about 18 years old on, I think. Yeah. And he managed to live to 74 years old just by the power of intellect. You saw what shape his body was in. It was just a shell, a crumpled little shell in a wheelchair that he used his eyes to talk with when he looked at screens and that. But he is the exception rather than the rule. And you wouldn't have said, except for the fact that he was able to use his mind and to keep doing what he did. So he had a quality of life because he was able to maintain his abilities in his trade. Whereas Steve here, he could not continue to be a journalist, but he then switched to be an activist for ALS and was tireless in that, apparently, according to the different articles.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. All right. Anything else to say about this?
No, I'm out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one further thing, there was quite a lot of protests across the USA, particularly in Los Angeles, over the weekend against immigration agents and the activity that they've been doing. And there's been a total of 27, maybe more, arrested during the course of the weekend.
Well, the protesters are stupid. If the protesters were peaceful protesters, it would be fine. As soon as they take a Molotov cocktail and throw it at anyone or a car, and we see one of the pictures of a police car on fire, looks to be a police car. Once you start doing that, you're inviting problem.
Yeah.
So Newsom says his own police, the police of LA, and those neighborhoods were adequate to the task. The real question is, Trump used this situation to inflate things by ordering in the National Guard to make a spectacle, as Newsom says, or is it because the governors and the city people are lax in their ability or efforts to reduce violent protests? So Newsom himself had said to the protesters, "Hey, look, don't give them an excuse to bring in the National Guard or the Marines. Don't give them an excuse. Don't throw that Molotov cocktail. Don't throw that brick. Don't even throw an empty cup, an empty juice box at the cops. Don't do anything like that. Do the protest.
Say make your protest, walk down the street or wherever you're making your protest, and move on."
And now, what is it with protests? They always have to turn violent.
Yeah.
Now, what happened in
cocktails? As soon as you end up with Molotov cocktails, then I think the thing is that protest is no longer, a viable protest.
Yeah, and there's always the bad actor in there.
Yeah,
we saw that on the Black Lives Matter protest. You had a protest, and then you had these idiots that smashed windows coming after that, and then you had the looters after that. You had $2 to $3 billion worth of stuff destroyed during the Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah.
So you had the protesters, you had the honest to God protesters, the peaceful protesters, you had the goons, the Antifa type goons, and then you had the looters thereafter. Whole blocks of New York City were all boarded up. LA, Portland, Seattle. Seattle was had riots, and my son was part of a demonstration in Seattle, and the cops started with the tear gas right away. Almost, they were walking down, and a few people threw plastic water bottles, empty ones, at the cops, and then they started to shoot tear gas right away, and they had to make a run for it. Do not get violent. Do not give the cops any excuses. And unfortunately, that's what Trump wants to do. He certainly does want a spectacle so he could show that he could do the job better than Newsom could do. Newsom says the job is being done well enough. There was only about 400 protesters, and I think they arrested 27 of them or something like that.
Yeah, 27 were arrested.
So they seem to have had it under control. But as soon as you start lighting cars on fire, things like that, then you're going to invite a president says, well, look, you can't handle it, and he's got an excuse to send the National Guard, and he will. And
nothing good comes from sending the National Guard in.
No. Look what happened at Ohio State when they did that.
Yeah.
Four students were killed.
Yeah. It's, every time the National Guard has been sent into any of these situations more recently, it's just exploded. The whole situation has exploded.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get that people have got an extra grind. Immigration, ICE, and the like are never going to be favorite people. It is certainly a hot topic in the US. And deportations are happening in the US. So ICE are not favored people. But again, say your word and say it peacefully.
Well, ICE is going into areas of LA that are made up of a lot of illegals, and their family members and everything else. And that's why people are waving Mexican flag. That's an odd thing to do too. Don't wave a Mexican flag. You wave a Mexican flag, that gives you see, they're not even Americans. See, they're waving the Mexican flag. That gives somebody, whatever reason they're using the Mexican flag, of course, is a solidarity with their Mexican friends and family. But what it does what it can be used for somebody like Trump can say, aha, they're not even good patriots. They're Mexicans. So if they want to be Mexicans, we'll send them back to Mexico.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful of what you do. And as soon as you get violent, that's it. It's over. As soon as you get violent, then nobody's going to pay attention to your protest.
And the thing is about it, remember, the bringing of Molotov cocktails to a demonstration to lob them at the police, that is, you don't just suddenly turn around. Also, I'm gonna go buy some gas and build Molotov cocktails. You don't do that in the instant. That is pre-planned.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's really just dumb. So don't give the cat. Look, if you want to have a protest, and the problem here is this situation was allowed to fester and exacerbate, and without anything being done about it. So you've had illegal migration year after year after year after year, and nobody doing anything really a whole lot about it. So when Trump gets in and he says he's going to do something about it, and then starts doing something about it, everybody's shocked. Well, why are you shocked? Because if you had done the minimum amount of work to make sure that the border was secure, then you wouldn't have this problem. You wouldn't have an excess amount of people in the country that shouldn't be here. You really would if you had done your job. The government had done their job in previous times. So now what it does is it gives somebody like Trump the excuse to be heavy-handed, and nobody's and the complaints against his heavy-handedness are very minor, because people are sick of hearing about so many illegals. Here's a president that appears to be doing something about it. But the way in which he's doing it is like a Nazi. So, but people kind of, well, at least he's doing something kind of attitude. And that's because politicians like to leave these things undone for so long that when something actually does happen, it goes overboard.
Yeah.
It's sad, very sad.
Well, and the point being is, I think in the past, politicians have been mouthing off against illegal immigrants, etc., but they just mouth off. They don't do anything about it. Whereas now you've got a politician that has decided to do something about it.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, if you had done your due diligence and allowed X amount of people in that the country could sustain, then you wouldn't have set yourself up for the heavy-handed approach that the Trump administration is using.
Yes.
And he is allowed to do that because people are so sick of the immigration thing that somebody's doing something about it. So they kind of turn their eyes away when things get overdone.
It's horrible that things are being over, when you go to the National Gardens, never any there's never a good solution.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we're done now. We're about 8:04.
Yeah.
I'd like just to bring up Gaza one more time. There is an article we didn't get to about how governments should respond to what's happening in Gaza right now.
Oh, Dave.
What?
Oh, there's an article we get to about how governments should respond, and then you died.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, just don't forget Gaza. It's an outrage that continues to happen. And without further ado, I bid you adieu.
Yeah, we'll come back to those other articles tomorrow.